Alright, so this is going to be quite a short video where I just discuss and share my thoughts on going from Canon to Sony when it comes to content creation and video cameras. First, we're just going to go through a brief history of my camera use. I've been a long time Canon guy, always been a Canon guy, used lots of Canon cameras. I had my Canon 550D for many years, also had a 650D, which is basically the same camera when you think about video, just with a flip-flop screen. And I've worked with 5Ds and those typical Canon DSLRs. And I started doing YouTube videos seriously in 2010, and all the way up until about 2021 I was using only Canon cameras, so that was my only experience. When 2021 came along, I started noticing that my old Canon 550D didn't really deliver when it comes to resolution. I also wanted to utilize more shallower depth of field, more face tracking, subject isolation, which just wasn't a possibility with that camera, as it had no autofocus while in video, and doing that stuff manually on your own is kind of not really feasible to do. So I started looking around for something to replace my aging fleet of Canon cameras, and I was considering going for the Canon cinema route, going for the C200, C300, but it was just too expensive for me to be able to do that at the time. And started looking at the Sony cameras. I was quite hesitant because I was reading so much about people having problems when it comes to especially the skin tones, which we will come back to in a moment. But I ended up going for the Sony a6400, which is what I'm shooting this video on now, and I've been using this camera exclusively for the last couple of years. So I've made some experiences with it. There are some things that I miss on the Canon, and there are some things that are definitely better on the Sony. The advantages of the Canon system that I had: first of all, the colors. The colors were just always there. For the first years that I was doing this, I knew nothing about lighting. I used mostly natural lighting, and sometimes I would put up some work lights or whatever just to get some better exposure, to get less noise. But even with crappy lighting, the colors were just there. It just looks good with very little demands for color grading. And another thing with Canon is, of course, the huge availability of lenses and lens adapters. So I was able to use a bunch of different lenses, and there were lots of options for cheap lenses and other lenses to adapt to put on. So the lens selection was definitely better, at least at the time. When it comes to advantages of the Sony system that I now have, it's definitely the autofocus. Actually having autofocus for video is amazing, and the face detect and the eye detect it just works. It just works all the time, and I basically never have to think about autofocus, and I can use my f1.4 lens with no issues whatsoever and get some great background separation, subject isolation, shallow depth of field without having any problems with the focus. So the autofocus is a big plus when it comes to the Sony system compared to the older Canon cameras that I used to own. Another thing is that the autofocus and the kind of smaller form factor just makes it more usable for me. It's just easier to set up. The flip up screen works, and it's just really easy to just press record and start shooting. Also, when it comes to the Sony a6400, one of the advantages of that is that it's one of the cheaper routes to having decent 4K video. There's no line skipping, there's no fake resolution. It's just really sharp 4K resolution for a decent price. Now, when it comes to what do I miss about the Canon system that I used to own: the Canon colors and the skin tones. With the Sony, I find myself doing way more work color grading, experimenting with the colors, never really finding my style, having troubles getting the skin tones right every single time, never being happy with what I have. There's just something wonky going on with the Sony colors. I don't have the Canon system here right now to show you any direct comparisons, but there are lots of comparisons online. You can just go search for that if you want to see some direct comparisons. But Sony definitely has different skin tones. You just have to do more work with it. I'm not saying that it's not good, but you need to put in more effort. That can be quite a hassle when you're just trying to get decent video and you end up doing a lot more work on the color side of things. So I definitely miss the Canon colors, and I'm always on the verge of going for a Canon system again, but kind of the autofocus and the usability and the form factor, and I just like the A6400, just keeps me with the Sony system for now. Also the Sigma 16mm f1.4, which I'm shooting this video on right now, is also excellent for video, for this kind of talking head portrait shots in cramped environments like this one. But yeah, I definitely miss the colors of the Canon. I don't miss much more of the Canon kind of ecosystem lifestyle, but I do miss having those instantly nice colors. They just felt better. So if I'm gonna conclude with something, it's that right now this is the best solution for me, because I cannot afford going for a C300 or C200 from Canon. That would require me to reinvest in some more Canon lenses, and the camera bodies are not cheap. If I could do that, if I had more money laying around right now, I would definitely go over to a Canon system again. But right now I just want nice 4K video, and the Sony does that for me. Alright, that pretty much sums it up. Just a short kind of discussion, just laying out my thoughts on the whole Sony versus Canon thing. I know lots of you just like to hear other people's opinions about this, so now you can go argue in the comment section if you want to do that, and I guess I will see you in the next video.